Welcome to Home's Room. Just like Homeroom, we start off our day getting together with our homies, swapping stories, even a little kiss and tell action. This podcast contains language not suitable for younger listeners, topics about sex and mental health. Discretion is advised. Our views are our own. Let class begin.
Welcome back to Home's Room. I was just talking about it the other day, and maybe yesterday, I have no idea, but I was gonna try and like match my energy for like the opening. So I either hit you with the welcome back, like a track announcer is what I kind of go for, old school like racetrack stuff, or I hit you with the welcome back. And you
I
always
was going to say, Matt, you just kind of welcome back. And it was like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. High energy. I love it, Matt.
Yeah, I try and do it all the time, but then there's episodes where I try and change it up so that I change it up. And those ones you always like, that was like very Mr. Rogers. I was like, that was the point. It's like, won't you be my neighbor? Like, let's
I
come
love
hang
it.
Out.
So no matter what, Matt, at the end of the day, you very much have Mr. Rogers vibes when you went to, and I mean that in the most respectful, complimentary way. Because all of us 90s...
Mr. Rogers was a G, so I'll take it.
He was a G. And you know what? Under that red cardigan, he was tattooed down to his wrists, Marine, served his country, You are very much like Mr. Rogers. You take that as a compliment, please.
I do. So we got heavy on the mental health side, I guess, if you want to consider it that for this. But maybe heart health, depending on how you look at it, episode for today. But also, I am not trendy at all. And every time like an internet trend happens, the only thing I'm trendy about is being like on the like cutting edge of like when there's a picture that comes out and people are using it to like kind of meme, like John Cena and my post about like using that image like the
10
day
out of
after
10.
it happened.
That was great content, Matt. Come on.
But I'm not trendy, and like I see the like get ready with me, and I'm not trendy, and getting ready with me, like I don't know, like you want to see me put on like a car t-shirt and a or like my Chris Kyle t-shirt or my hoodie and my jeans, like no, it doesn't. It's not really worth it. So I was like, man, what do I want to do? I want to do one of these because it'll be fun. I was like, you know what I'll do? I'll do a get like ready for an episode with me. So I posted that. So if you haven't seen it, go to our Instagram, Home's Room Pod, and like watch that. Go to I think it should be on YouTube too, so you can go look at it on YouTube. Either way, but I just thought it was so funny because I was like, how cheesy can I be with this? And that's what happened. Is I was cheesy with it.
That was great. I thought it was wonderful and a whole new insight to how Matt prepares for podcast episodes. And I was also thinking, like, in duality, what my preparing for podcast episodes looks like. For all of our listeners, we record these at like 8:00 Central Time. Matt posted a wonderful, wholesome video of him like kissing Court and putting on his headphones. And, literally I was 4 minutes late to joining the recording tonight because I was negotiating with my toddler terrorist of trying to go to bed. So it was just like, Matt, I am so envious of the stage of parenting that you are in. I appreciate so much when you and Court want to give me any type of guidance on hang in there, friend. Like it gets easier, it gets better. But it was it's a great video. I love it. And it was also super entertaining to think about, like, Matt sitting around peacefully with his headphones on, waiting for me to join. And 4 minutes before I'm supposed to sit down and record, I'm like, Ava, please go to sleep, go to bed. Like, we're no more passy. We're not doing a passy. Mama cannot come cuddle with you. So here we are. Sorry in advance if you can hear toddlers screaming in the background at Home's Room. We like to keep it real.
So what I will say is don't believe what you see on the internet. That was yesterday, which was a Sunday, getting ready for an episode I recorded with Kinsey, and the girls weren't here. So
Okay.
it was so much different than a normal night where you and I record,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you and I, when we record, I mean, I hang out with Courtney, we're finishing dinner, watching whatever we're watching, and then it's let the dog out, get them ready, get them like on point to go to bed, give them their hugs, like, hey, all right, you're going to bed. Try and deal with my my youngest, who sometimes is like, I don't want to go to bed, and I just have to like deal with the attitude for a second. Then it's like clinging around and all sorts of stuff in the other room surrounding me. No, it's a lot more hectic than it seems. That was just like the perfect time to do it, because I knew it's just me and Courtney. I can record that part of it. I can do I can go get my water in the kitchen, and the kitchen is like, the sink is actually empty, so it doesn't look like we're living in squalor. And then the girls aren't here, so it was like, okay, I can walk in that room and it's not going to be like, Dad, wait, can I get it? And so it's for the gram.
I love it. And I really also just, Matt, appreciate how much that you are so hardcore, like to your core, you are a girl dad. And I feel like that makes our friendship a little bit easier to stomach too, just because I don't know. I think my husband has had a whole different experience with fatherhood with an older girl and a younger boy, where I feel like from a foundational assumption, I understand girl dads a little bit better. So appreciate you so much, Matt.
Yeah. I enjoy being a girl dad, honestly. It's been fun. My youngest is her own thing. She operates outside the rules of like normal society. So I consider myself a girl dad times two, but also that one might stab me in the kidney just because I like looked at her wrong. So it's
Lord.
But yeah, I don't know. It's to each their own. We just did that interview with one of my friends on Friday, and like, I've known her forever now, so like, you got a little bit of an insight into like people that I know, and like I just told you about like how long I've known Kinsey or Spencer. So like, it's just such an interesting thing for me to see me through other people's perspectives.
Yeah.
Because like, I'm usually the one asking people questions to like talk about themselves, so I usually don't have it like angled at me. But in this episode, we're going to talk about like doing hard heart work, and that gets about as like introspective as you can get. So we're going to turn them lenses towards ourselves today.
Let me just preface this episode with a quick thank you to Matt for entertaining this topic. It was something that struck me creatively a couple of weeks ago, and it's something that I felt really compelled to have a conversation about, because here I am, turning 30 in June, and and Matt too, we've had several conversations about the time that we've put into growing ourselves into better people. And I feel like a part of that process that's not maybe necessarily talked so much about is having those really uncomfortable realizations of like, I need to be doing this a lot better. For me, in therapy, as somebody that lost her mom younger and had a federal agent single parent father, this is super, super timely, because I think that a lot of this comes from me trying to rebelliously reject those standard gender norms of like Susie Homemaker, and coming to the really, really hard realization of like, I find personal pride in myself of not being Susie Homemaker. I think it is a point of it's something that I'm proud of myself for fighting gender stereotypes, where Now I also have the really hard heart realization through therapy and fun conversations with my friends like Matt and my wonderful husband of rejecting those standards and those gender stereotypes so hard has also made me come to terms with the fact of, yes, I'm not Susie Homemaker, but I'm so far on the opposite end of that spectrum that I need to sit down and have a real conversation with myself of, I probably need to be a little bit more Susie Homemaker to be the best wife for my husband and the best mom for my kids. So again, thank you, Matt, for entertaining this specific conversation, but all of it kind of comes from this idea of putting in the time and the investment into yourself and trying to make yourself a better person, and what the process is of realizing like, oh, I fucked up at this, or I need to be doing this better, and how to be kind to yourself through that process. So any advice that you have of being nice to yourself, Matt, of realizing like, oh, I suck at this. I am currently in therapy with a great new therapist. I don't know if I've actually publicly talked about it here on Home's Room yet, but we vibe super well. She is the type of therapist where like, instead of hanging out in her office for an hour to talk about therapy, I wish we could be at a Mexican restaurant, like doing the same conversation over margaritas. Like, I adore her. She's great. She's wonderful. But I'm thankful to have that connection with the therapist, because those hard heart realizations, or those harder realizations of things that I need to be doing better, are a little bit easier to accept when I'm in a more comfortable environment, if that makes sense, Matt.
Yeah, it does make sense. When it comes to like that kind of thing for anybody, like I said, introspection is kind of the like name of the game, and it's being able to like look at yourself and not shy away. And those moments of like wanting to shy away, like doubling down on the fact that like, I want to fix this, I need to fix this, and for no other reason than the fact that I need to fix this. And I think that's the part that's like the hard heart work, is if you're not willing to look at yourself and say, I need to do this for me, I need to do this because I don't like this thing about myself. I don't know. I think it's kind of a hard road to go down if you're always on the, well, I mean, tomorrow, or, is it, I think I'm just being too hard on myself. Maybe it's okay. And it's like giving yourself leeway for something that isn't really a good thing about yourself is, I don't know. That's where I always kind of run up against it, where my outlook on it is different than a lot of people's. Like we talked about this before, where like the things I do and the things that like other people would do are just so drastically different, because for me, in the end, I know what I like, I know what I don't like. And if I'm starting to go to the things that I don't like, at that point, it's up to me to say, hey, fucker, stop it. You know better. I don't know.
How do you do that and still be kind to yourself, though? Please bestow your wisdom upon us.
So that's the thing is, what does kind to yourself look like? Because only thing that you can say is, well, don't talk to yourself in a negative way. But I don't know about you. I grew up in a house where we fucking roasted each other constantly. Like, it was if you couldn't get back, you got to get back. Like, it didn't matter. So where saying, hey, dummy, to me, I'm not actually, I know that I'm not dumb. It doesn't put me down. It doesn't hurt my feelings to call myself dummy. So like, is that negative? Does that count? Is that being nice to myself? Or if it's like, hey, look, I know that you're feeling some kind of way, but the job ain't done. So get back in it. Like, talking to myself sternly, that's not negative. It's like, that's how I would have been talked to. That's how I would talk to somebody when the chips are down. But other people might crumble under that because they don't like being talked to that way. They are, afraid of it, where again, the way that I handle a situation is going to be drastically different than anybody else, which is why, I honestly try and keep my mouth shut a lot of times in a lot of situations, because it's not for me to say. If you ask my advice, yeah, I might give it to you, but I'm not going to just like interject myself into your storm, because what you need in that moment, what I can see that you need, and what your brain tells you, what your heart tells you, what, your inner monologue tells you, might not be the thing that I'm going to say.
Matt, I think I just need at this point to just pay you and make you follow me around and say like, suck it the hell up. Like, you need to figure it out. I have had several creative discussions with my husband lately. Not to air out our dirty laundry completely, but to give a little bit of transparency as to why this is a topic that I wanted to talk about right now. With, I had a really specific idea of what traditional gender norms were growing up. I've been very open about the fact that I lost my mom at 14. I had a kind of emotionally toxic relationship with a mentor in church that I had when I was a teenager, where she was very much, I know I keep saying it, but like the definition of Susie Homemaker, and the type of person that she was, the personality that she showed, and she like homeschooled her kids, which is no judgment on that choice at all. But with this specific relationship that I had, I met my now husband. I made the very difficult choice to go no contact with her, only because this was a woman who felt entitled to be filling the position of my mother, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. All of this to say that I ran from that toxic relationship so much that I completely rebelled against traditional gender values. Like, as I'm sitting here today, my husband is the one that does the grocery order. Sure enough, it's 2024, homies. We get groceries delivered to our front fucking porch. Okay. Unapologetically. Okay. Please, 10 out of 10, recommend completely. Pay the $5 a week if you don't do that. I love it. It is super great. The kids help us bring the groceries into the kitchen. We help, we put them all the way together. But he is the manager of the house. He also comes from a construction project manager background. It's super easy for him to view our household as a project that needs to be managed. I love this topic of conversation between you and Matt, because he is a project manager. Part of managing our household has been him embracing typically more feminine roles in our household. 9 times out of 10, he's the one that cooks dinner. 100% of the weekends, he's the one that navigates, we need to start the laundry, or we need to do these chores. And, having that difficult time of introspection of like, part of these are behaviors that are part of these are patterns that we developed after my dad passed away, where like he, was like, I will do all of this for us so that you can get through this and survive through this difficult time. But now I'm also to the part where I'm like having a really hard realization of like, I have to embrace these ultra feminine or more typically feminine roles in my house, as physically uncomfortable as it makes me, to be the best partner for my husband or be the best mom for my kids. And I don't know if that's anything that you and Courtney can relate to or not, but that's part of the reason why I wanted to have this topic of conversation, because I don't, my situation is kind of niche, but I feel like it's, if you are an adult who is in a long-term partnership, who is trying to constantly improve themselves or, be the best version of yourself possible, you have to have that level of introspection where you're like, I fucked up on this, or I could be doing this better, or I'm being very selfish or very like narcissistic maybe on this aspect of my life. And for me to be a better partner, person, father, mother, whatever, it's really difficult for some people to stomach those realizations of like, I thought I was doing so well and I really have not been in this aspect. So sorry for the soapbox, Matt.
So I would say that that's not abnormal. And I think thinking that it's abnormal is what puts the pressure on you. Removing that pressure because it's not abnormal. I think probably a good 60 to 75% of relationships have that dynamic, especially now where two people are working and one person has to manage the home, and the person that and like, I'm not saying that you're bad at it, but the person that's just better equipped to do it does it. And I can tell you, we had this conversation literally today, because before we recorded, today was a hectic schedule. I went to work, and then at like from 5 to 6 I had an interview scheduled, so like I did a recording, and then I had from 6 to 8 when we record, where I didn't have to do anything, but I cook 90% of the time. And when we were talking about it, I was like, we can have burgers. I like it because they're quick. It's not going to take long on the grill. I grill everything. Like, we don't really cook inside unless we absolutely have to. And Courtney really wanted to like try and help out, and she was like, I mean, if you want, I can just cook so you have more time. And I had to explain to her, like, cooking and grilling specifically brings me peace. Mm-hmm. So I want to do it. It's not a thing that I'm like, that's on my plate. Like, for me, what would serve me better if instead of offering to cook, say tomorrow, can we have, so that's a thing off my plate. I don't have to worry about deciding something, because deciding it is the part where like I got like 4 people to try and take into account, 5 if you count giving the dog the leftovers. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things where like, I know he's going to eat no matter what. Mm-hmm. But what are the other 3 people going to eat? And I'm literally, I say it all the time, like, I'll feed myself. It don't matter. So if you know you want something, you let me know and it'll be ready for you when you get home. But if you don't tell me and I got to try and figure it out, you're going to get what I decide to cook, because that's what I decided to cook. And that's a thing that would take something off my plate. Offering to cook, while that's nice and maybe helpful, it's like, that's the one thing that I know I can do and execute, almost at will with no issues. So taking that thing away from me is like, what do I do? And now I'm sitting here feeling like I should be doing something, but I'm not, because the thing that like relaxes me and gets me into like the day is almost over is cooking dinner. So, it just kind of is.
I wish I would have known going into this fun season of life, that being able to have grace and compassion with yourself is such a skill.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's something that's maybe not talked about as much as it should be, where like, I have had such a bad routine of behavior in the past of like, completely only fixating on the negative, or the like negative feedback, the constructive criticism. I've felt like I've always been somebody that can receive constructive criticism super well, but that's only 100% of what I focus on. Mm-hmm. Like, give me a compliment sandwich, whatever the fuck. I don't pay attention to the buns. I only care about the middle, where you're telling me all the things that I can improve, or like trying to justify where that's maybe not an area. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't understand what's going on. You're giving me this feedback as somebody that's maybe not completely well educated. I didn't realize also until I was this far into adulthood and this far into my, to be honest, adventure in therapy, where embracing vulnerability and embracing softness is truly a sign of strength, where you're putting yourself in a position to make yourself vulnerable, to hear that kind of feedback about how you're showing up as a wife, as a mother, as a father, as a partner, as a coworker. It is truly such a sign of strength to leave your ego at the door and hear the feedback that your friend, loved one, whatever your partner is giving you, and be able to accept it wholeheartedly and be able to turn around and tell them, like, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. You're completely valid in your feelings. That response alone is so healing for so many people, Matt. You know, I don't know if how many times you've given feedback to somebody and you wish that that was all that you heard back of, like, I hear you. That's valid. 100%. But not just validating another person's feelings or experience and their feedback, but also being like, here's my game plan of like improving myself as a person, as a vocal sufferer of ADHD, and as a very vocal processor. Having a therapist as an unbiased third party has been a huge asset to me as somebody to hear me out, be completely emotionally detached from the current situation, and be able to give me that type of feedback that I need to hear, that's maybe, you know, difficult to hear, but is necessary. I think that, you know, dying unto yourself and learning to, I hate this word, Matt, submit. I explicitly told my husband when we got married, I don't want the word submit in our marriage vows at all. You know, that's how much I wanted to rebel against traditional gender, you know, norms and behaviors and, you know, standards of how a woman is supposed to be in a marriage. It was like, we will not have the word submit anywhere in our marriage ceremony. But to be in a position of embracing softness and embracing vulnerability now, almost 30, and living through as many life events that I've, you know, these are the cards that I've been dealt with. What I have, which is almost the antithesis of what I've been raised to believe, Matt, is that there's so much strength in embracing softness, in embracing vulnerability, in embracing, you know, receptiveness to these hard heart realizations that we're having about ourselves, whether through difficult conversations with our friends, difficult conversations with our spouses. Being in a position where you're receptive to these difficult truths about yourself and your behavior is really strong and really brave. And I deeply admire all of the adults and all of the people that figured it out a lot sooner than I did, Matt.
Well, so here's the thing. And I would put it in super simple terms, and you're going to make one of those faces. Softness is earned through safety. So, yep, that one right there. So learning to be soft with yourself comes through safety. If you don't feel safe and you're always on the offensive, where's there room to be soft? And that's not saying that like you should be on the defensive, but in between the two. People like you, people, you know, like me, we're on offense. We're not going to get got. We're going to make sure that we're either on the leading edge of it. We're in control of the situation as much as we can be, depending on what it is. And anything else that's not for me, it doesn't matter because it's not for me. Like, I don't care about that part. So in the end, like I said, softness is earned through safety. The safer you feel, the more chance you can let your guard down to be soft. And as long as you're in the activated state, there's not really much you can do for anything. And that's why, like, hard heart work in itself, like when you posted this, I was like, I'm going to need like a little bit more information about like what you're trying to get after here, because it could mean so much. Like for me, when I think about hard heart work that I've done, the first thing that comes to my mind is conversations with my dad. My dad was in and out of my life more than he was in my life. And there was a long period of time where we were like, basically, like I didn't talk to him unless I had to. And I, till this day, fight a sense of obligation, not to him, but to the need of a person. So if somebody needs me, the best way to get me to do anything is to tell me you need me to do it. And if you tell me you need me to do it, I'm obligated now, because I was raised to be the pillar. I was raised to be the consequence when something didn't turn out right. I was raised to be the thing that's like, oh, well, you're behind. You need some work done. Well, we got to go get this guy now because he's going to knock it the fuck out of the park, and you're going to wish you asked him first. So, like, it's hard. It's a hard thing for me to not feel obligated into something now. But when I was going through the like biggest part of, you know, this journey of like, why am I the way that I am? Why do I have the resentments that I have? You know, it's because I grew up without a dad, and I was raising myself in the pivotal times of like, you know, 8, 9 years old, where your dad should be your hero. My dad wasn't in my life. 15, 14, like 15 and a half, 16 to like 18. My dad wasn't in my life. Those are those moments where like you need that person, and not having that person makes it harder for you to understand how to navigate the world. So you're figuring it out on your own. And what that does is that creates anger. And I realized that I was putting that anger towards everybody else, because if you're not up to my standard, you're fucking worthless. And that's not a good way to go through life. While it may be true at times, it's not the healthiest of solutions. So finally having it out with him and explaining to him that like the situation that I'm now in because of his actions, regardless of what his actions were for and why he justified them to himself and what he thought he was doing versus what it seemed like he was doing to me, whatever that thing is, both truths can be accurate. Now I understand that. Then it was like, no, man, you're just flat out wrong, and I don't understand how you don't see this. But you know, that healing journey and starting with that kind of a thing and releasing this weight that like is tied to, you know, resentment of a father, that one aspect of heart work opened up so many more floodgates. Because why was I angry? I wasn't angry because my wife wasn't doing whatever this thing was, or my friends weren't hanging out with me, or they weren't. I was angry because yet again, here's another person who isn't there for me when they should be there for me. And I was directing way more like, you know, vitriol towards a person for things that they weren't responsible for. And heart work is realizing what's actually the problem, not, you know, oh, well, Betty made me mad because she's over here talking to my husband and he must like her more than she likes me. Like, nah, man, like you're mad because you wish that you could be having the conversation with your husband that Betty's having, and something is stopping you from it. So go figure out what that thing is, go name it, and be like, oh shit, like that's not that big of a deal. I didn't realize I was mad about that. Now that I'm not mad about that, like I feel like I could have this conversation with you, and it's like, oh shit, we could have been having this conversation all along. So
I think it's also such a huge sign of emotional intelligence to realize like this is the emotion that is being triggered right now.
mm-hmm.
But here's the actual underlying issue where like, you know, if you are the person that is constantly in this struggle of like self-improvement or like going through therapy and trying to continually pay all this money to be the best version of yourself as possible or deal with all your shit, like be in a position where you're feeling hurt and you're feeling this emotional trigger or you're feeling this like fight or flight moment, understanding the underlying things that trigger that in you and not only understanding it, but continuously showing up to try to interpret or try to understand or try to show up for yourself. Self-improvement, I'm a very black and white person. Matt, I don't know if you know this about me by now. I am a Enneagram 8 Gemini type A personality. It really would be so much easier for me if I could just do 2 + 2 = 4. I don't need medication anymore. I'm out the door kind of thing. That's not how life works, right? So if you are a person who keeps continuously showing up for yourself and admitting your faults and having, not only just having these difficult conversations with yourself or a therapist or a friend or a partner or spouse, whatever the fuck, having these hard heart realizations, continuously showing up to put the work in to be the best version of yourself as possible, it is completely exhausting. Let me just validate for you how exhausting that is. I just this past weekend had this moment of hopelessness of I'm 3 or 4 years into this journey of therapy. I've paid so much money to try and figure out myself. I keep trying to show up monthly to these doctor's appointments. I keep trying to show up and get medicated. I keep trying to show up and TikTok, whether it's going to be banned or not, show me and explain to me and educate to me so much more about my ADHD than I necessarily knew in the first place. And, my grief journey, whatever the fuck. It is so exhausting to continuously show up for yourself and have these difficult introspective conversations and realizations about yourself. I just want to validate that struggle for everybody. I want to tell anyone who is continuously struggling with this concept that I am so proud of you for still continuously trying to show up. I think it is a true mark of strength to try to shovel through your shit and figure out these issues, Matt. What I've noticed in some of my family members who are okay with embracing misery is that it is the easy way out to just embrace misery and be miserable forever. It is arguably, objectively, the much harder decision to shovel through your shit, try to find peace through the trauma, try to find peace through the struggle, and find a better version of yourself through all this awful shit that happens to you. It is totally the antithesis of what I was raised to believe, where just putting your head down, shoveling forward, moving forward, and just crossing off the next task as it comes up as a sign of strength. That's the easy way out. Putting your head down, ignoring your feelings, ignoring your trauma, burying all your feelings is the easy way out. Putting your big girl panties on, coming face to face with yourself in the mirror, and having those hard heart conversations with yourself of, I'm really struggling with this. And this is a really difficult thing or a concept for me to identify with. Coming to that realization is much more difficult than just ignoring it, pushing it under the rug, and pretending that it doesn't exist. Sorry for the soapbox, Matt.
You're gonna have to stop saying that.
Can you tell this is a topic that I'm very passionate about?
So take this with a grain of salt. But I think something that people need to realize and stop, even when you talk to people in a professional setting, people need to start realizing that, is it a fault or is it just who you are? A fault implies that you're wrong. A fault implies that it is the non-correct way to be. It's not necessarily a fault. If who you are is a person that stands on your soapbox, stop apologizing for it. Own that that's what you're going to do, and say it with your full fucking chest, and realize, okay, this is a thing that I am passionate about. Let me tell you why, and let me tell you how it's important and why it is so important to me. That's not a fault, something you should be apologizing for. That's just who you are. So in the sense of people that over apologizing,
Can you just at me? You want to
yeah.
just at me, Matt?
I literally said take it with a grain of salt. But the people that over apologize are people who were made to feel small. Were like caught in a situation at some point in time where they had to be as small as possible, take up as little room, and just their existence was an atrocity against whatever was going on. And that's unfortunate. But is that who you are, or is that who you were made to be? That's a fault. If it's something that you are just about, like, I can tell you, for me, I can't stand when people get annoyed with, like, there's a buzzing in the room, or there's like a chirp from an alarm that like the battery is dying on, and it just drives them fucking batty. Like, they can't handle it. It's like, it's the smallest thing in the world. If that annoys you, I would hate to see what happens when something big fucking goes on in your life. That's not a fault. That's just who I am. That annoys me to my core. It's not a fault that I get irritated at people like that. And it's not a fault that they can't handle that sound. It's just who these people are in this moment. What's a fault is me being like, can you just go somewhere else and chill? Because I didn't need to say that. I chose to say that. I chose to be the aggressor in that situation. And, whatever they say back may or may not be a fault. So it just kind of is. I don't know.
How do I stop apologizing so much, Matt?
Catch yourself in the moment and realize, I'm not going to apologize for this. Or immediately after apologizing, take a stock of, did I need to apologize for that? I did not. Next time this situation comes up, I have to remember to not apologize for it. Or at least in your head, after you apologize, like, you know what? I'm not sorry about that. And the more you do that, the more likely you are to not apologize the next time.
Noted. I hear you.
Jedi mind tricks. A lot of that stuff, again, this is why, like, I always try and shy away from these things. The way my brain works and why therapy has never been a thing that I can get past certain stages of is because I'm super self-aware, but I'm super self-aware because I was made to be super self-aware. And that is a fault, because it becomes to the point where, like, I can't connect with people because I'm so self-aware that I think myself out of the situation.
But Matt, as someone who also struggles with this, I don't think it's necessarily a fault. Being self-aware is not a bad thing. And I don't think that you think that being self-aware is a bad thing. In the context of therapy, I have had to, I'm now on my third therapist of, I feel like to a point I'm pretty self-aware. I am just now dipping my toes into EMDR. So give me like maybe 8 months and then we can have a full cohesive conversation about what this light bar bullshit is. I don't know. I'm not actually there yet. But I would, as your homie, Matt, I would want to caution you against thinking that being self-aware is a negative thing, because there are so many people out here who are not that.
So
in the context of therapy, though, I can see how you'd have to get a couple therapists or try different, types of therapy before it is before the juice is worth the squeeze, as the kids say.
So here's why I would consider it a fault. So, like, you have to talk yourself into doing something, right? You have to go through. I am fine with jumping straight into anything because I've already, in the moment of thinking about it, weighed all the outcomes, weighed all the possibilities, made the path. So, and what takes other people, 3 weeks to decide, I decided in, maybe 15 minutes because that's how long it took. Usually it's faster than that depending on the situation. But in that 3 weeks, if I'm waiting on, like, say we were talking about doing an episode, if it took you 3 weeks to like work your way up to it and say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm self-aware enough that I've weighed all of those things and had those 3 weeks that you had to talk yourself into it to find ways to talk myself out of it, to make it not worth it, or to have already worked through all of the things that made it interesting. So now it's no longer interesting. So I miss out on opportunities because sitting around waiting on it, I can find ways to be like, something else is better, something else makes more sense in this moment because of the situations dynamically changing as that time span goes on. And it sounds, again, like I don't say it's a fault as in like it's like the worst thing in the world and it's super negative, and I say it as a fault because I miss more opportunities because of it than I would if I just like was similar to everybody else and had that moment of like fight or flight. For what everybody else, it takes them 3 seconds. For me, it's like 2 milliseconds to make that decision. And I've always been that way. And unfortunately, it has caused me to do dumb stuff, both directions, deciding to and not to do stuff. So it just kind of is.
Yet again, another reason why we are just two random dinguses with internet access who happen to link up, because I 100% resonate with everything that you just said. I hear you. I validate you. You are not alone in that. And it's anyone who is still continuously showing up and trying to put work and time and effort into making themselves a better version of themselves, to educate themselves or to be a better partner, mother, father, whatever. It is not time or effort wasted. It is not the juice is not worth the squeeze, if I'm allowed to use a double negative here, as Matt Holmes, the writer, can please give me a pass for that. Jesus H. It's here at Holmes Room, one thing that I'm really, really proud of, the type of community and environment that we've built, is that all of us can show up here unapologetically trying to pursue light at the end of the tunnel of those difficult conversations, those difficult concepts, those uncomfortable conversations, those uncomfortable concepts. And again, one of those reasons why I felt compelled or inspired to have this specific conversation, just because it's really, sometimes it can feel really isolating to be out here trying to put that work into yourself or put that work into your family with you and your spouse by yourselves. Not wasted effort. So solidarity to everyone who is struggling with that specific conflict. You are seen, you are heard. We want to validate those feelings for you. And thank you, Matt, for holding space for this type of conversation. I know you initially gave me a couple questions. We're like, what the hell is this on the deck kind of thing? But it's, here we are, over a year of us recording episodes together, Matt? Yeah. And several episodes where we've had kind of uncomfortable conversations with homies, with our friends. It's hard out here, and the best that any of us can do is to make the best decision that we can with the information that we have available to us at the time. And that's really maybe the real hack, Matt, of parenting and adulthood. So nobody knows what the hell we're doing.
I will throw a note that I wrote onto that and remind people that the work can't be equal. So the work that you're doing, especially in a partnered relationship, the work that you're doing isn't equaled by the work that your partner's doing. You're going to do all of these things at completely different rates and completely different directions. The hard part is understanding that and accepting who that person is in that moment and not expecting more of them than themselves. One of the things that I love in one of the interviews I did, um, she said, I was only as like honest with myself as I knew myself. I was only as open with myself as I knew myself. And I think that is accurate for every person. Being open with yourself and being honest with yourself, you can only be as open and honest with yourself as you know yourself. So if you're not having those conversations, then like, yeah, I mean, you might not know yourself as well as you think you do. And every time you draw a little bit of resentment when somebody says something and you feel like, well, you think you know me. It's like, well, maybe they know a little bit more about you than you know about yourself. And instead of getting angry or defensive, ask yourself, is this really me? Or take a mental note to have that conversation and journal about it, or whatever, like life hacky thing you want to use to figure it out. But at the end of the day, the thing is, like the work isn't equal. And that's probably one of the hardest things in, my marriage that I have to like remind myself of is, I have to accept her for who she is. And that forces me to decide in the relationship if it's something that I want to keep or if it's something that I want to move on from. If I am at a place where this no longer serves me, or it's too hard to stay in this position and not know whether we're going to grow at a similar rate or we're not going to grow at a similar rate. And that is, a whole nother level of what working on yourself is when you've worked on yourself to the point where you do grow and you do notice the difference in yourself and you do notice things that are triggering, and whether the people that are around you causing those triggers are worth keeping them there, or if it's something that, you feel like by telling them they'll make that adjustment and make that change because they care about you enough and they care about their relationship with them enough. So I don't know.
10 out of 10, Matt. Everything that you just said resonates with me on such a deep spiritual level. I don't know. What do we need to do? But maybe we need to just like burn sage and have like some kind of ceremony. I don't know. No, it's, again, something that I am really thankful that you wanted to have, hold space for this type of conversation on an episode of Holmes Room Podcast, Matt.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, you just gotta, I used to do this exercise where I literally looked at myself in the mirror and stared at my own eyeballs in the mirror and asked myself difficult and hard questions that I didn't do it out loud. I did it, in my head, but, those questions where I like had to look away from myself to try and answer were the questions I had to ask myself every day until I could look at myself and speak the answer. So like, I don't know, figure out what works for you.
That sounds, as a vocal processor, Matt, that sounds much harder, but much cheaper than what I have to go through in therapy to kind of accomplish the same thing. So,
well, I mean, I challenge you, something that you've been struggling with, not like, not you, Kaitlin, but you, anybody listening, look at yourself in the mirror, like literally look at yourself in the mirror, and those things that you're struggling with, ask yourself, like, am I happy? Is this a thing? Is this relationship serving me? And like, wait for the answer. Decide whether, that's something that you're shying away from, you're recoiling from, and, see what happens. Again, the way I process stuff and the way other people process stuff is completely different. So what works for me is not necessarily going to work for anybody else, but the ways that I found to like connect with myself are things that I've done since I was like a teenager, because that's the way that like I've realized, damn, communicating with myself in this way actually helps or actually does something, or I get a response. So try stupid shit and see whether it works.
Try stupid shit. That is Matt's official advice for this episode.
100%. I try stupid shit all the time. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, because I tried stupid shit so many times, I know how to try stupid shit and be successful.
I love it. You're awesome.
I still got all my fingers. I still got all my toes. So there's part of it. Both eyeballs work, especially with the aid of glasses, which are outside of my control. Thanks, Mom.
I love it. That's awesome.
See, so now what needs to happen is you have a ton of notes. So it seems like you're gonna have a episode of the Dead Parents Party podcast addressing all of this, because
I will. Matt and I both have our Google Doc open on our respective computer screens. And I feel like at this point, to summarize all of it, I'm maybe beating a dead horse, but be kind to yourself. Be nice to yourself. Give yourself some grace. The fact that you are still here, showing up, surviving everything that you have been through, and wanting to improve yourself and be a better version of yourself is something to be admired, and something that a lot of people would shy away from because they are too weak to confront. So, maybe a little bit of a that's what she said, but yeah, this was I feel like I need to go meditate for like 45 minutes on this whole conversation, Matt.
Yeah. I will say I don't necessarily think that people that aren't having these conversations are too weak to have them. I think they're too afraid to have them. Stop being afraid. Fear is the thing that stands in the way of so many dreams. And something that I started telling my daughters is, what's on the other side of fear? And they respond, success or failure. And it's like, if you know that those are the only two possibilities on the other side, why are you afraid? If you know you might fail, cool. Then you'll figure out another way. If you know you have the potential to succeed, then cool. That's an outcome. But if you're going to stand here and not chance either because you're afraid, then like what are you doing? And
thank you for that one, Matt. I will keep that on lock for my own children when they are that same age, because that is actual gold. That's great. That's wonderful.
My oldest takes more chances and, asks more questions than she used to because she was afraid to ask questions. So it's like, ask those questions, because it's only going to get better. And the more you ask those questions, the less likely you're going to have to ask those questions.
Absolutely.
We try and have good conversations here, so hopefully this was one of those good conversations. We also try and support each other and be open and honest. And I think that more open and honest conversations with your friends is only going to be a good thing. And if you're not having open and honest conversations with your friends, are they really your friends, or are they just people you exist around? I don't know. I think it's crazy.
Yet again, another reminder to our wonderful, fantastic Homes Room listeners that Matt and I have never met in real life.
Correct.
This is the closest that Matt and I have ever gotten to a face-to-face conversation. Stay tuned, because maybe that will change here in the next 6 to 8 months, but I don't want to say any more than that, But I used to think that I had to have these really long, serious relationships with friends, and that was the only way that I could have these types of conversations with friends. Peak adulthood is making a friend and just picking up and meeting each other where you're at, and embracing and accepting each other where you're at 100%, just at that moment in time. Matt, when we first met each other, zero clue how much older you were than me. Didn't fucking care. Still don't care. Age is just a number. I am still super thankful that I have a homie who is willing to meet me where I'm at and accept me and embrace me through that. I'm thankful that Court is a wonderful partner for you, and that we are two random Midwestern strangers that happened to meet on the internet.
Whoa. I'm from the Mid-Atlantic. Don't even lump me in with the Midwestern thing.
Sorry, Matt. Let me backtrack. I'm a random St. Louis girl, and you are a random Kansas City or Kansas boy, okay? And this is, we're just meeting each other where we're at. Peak adulthood is meeting new friends where you're at, embracing each other fully, and unapologetically embracing each other for where you're at. So again, I thank you, Matt, for letting me tag along for your adventure on the Holmes Room podcast. I adore you. I love these conversations, and all of our listeners, all the feedback, the messages that you've shared with me that you've gotten have been so thought provoking. I love it. Adore it. But yeah, thank you, Matt. Adore you.
You guys keep those coming. Like, make sure you message us and tell us random thoughts or random things or what you like, what you dislike, all that kind of stuff, because it's what keeps us going. So yeah. And with that, bye.
The bell is about to ring. If you want to drop us a voice message or simply ask a question, you can do that by clicking the link in the show notes below. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. It helps more people find us. Theme music by Kinsey. More music available on Spotify. Remember, every day is a class. Go learn something.